Whether it's illness, addiction, divorce, or just everyday frustrations you're facing, it's often hard to find the strength to put things in perspective and rebuild your life. Rabbi Naomi Levy says there aren't any easy answers, but she offers guidance in her new book, To Begin Again, The Journey Toward Comfort, Strength, and Faith in Difficult Times. Rabbi Levy, good morning. Good to see you.
Nice to meet you, Matt.
You offer some personal stories in this, some stories from your congregants. You offer traditions from the Jewish religion, some Jewish teaching. So is it a religious book or is it a self-help book?
I think it's probably both. I mean, it has memoir in it, it has spiritual guidance in it, and it does have self-help in it. So I think it sort of crosses different boundaries.
As a rabbi, it is often your job to listen to the problems of others and offer some sort of advice, whether it's practical or spiritual. But why actually did you want to put this down into a book?
Well, from the time that I was a tiny little girl, I wanted to be a rabbi. And from the time I was maybe 3 years old, I knew I was going to be a rabbi.
Which is strange because there weren't an awful lot of women rabbis at that time.
None. And I grew up believing that that's what would happen. And when I was 15, something changed that. My father was murdered in a street robbery, and it devastated me, obviously. And I lost not only my father, who meant the world to me, I also lost my faith in God. Which was no small matter for someone who'd grown up believing she was going to be a rabbi. But in time, I regained my faith, and what I found was a faith that was even stronger than it had been before. And then that childhood fantasy of mine came back to me, and I became a rabbi. And as a congregational rabbi, what I found most inspired me, probably because of my own life experience, was watching people face challenges, small challenges, huge challenges, and emerge stronger and kinder and wiser because of them. And I felt that I had to write this book, both about my own life and about the lives of my congregants. And that's what To Begin Again is about. It's about uncovering the strength of the human spirit.
Some of the stories you tell are difficult. There's a story of a woman, I believe her name was Michelle, who was raped. Mm-hmm. And often after a tragedy like this, you even hinted about it in your own personal situation, mm-hmm. people come and they say, if there's a God, how could God have let this happen to me? Mm-hmm. How do you answer that question?
The first thing I remember is my own rage when it happened in my family. And then I try to remember also that people sometimes look at me as if I'm God's representative.
Right.
But the truth is, I'm not God's press secretary. And I'm not engaged in some kind of staged cover-up. The truth is, I also have questions, I also have anger, I get just as frustrated as you do, and as everyone does. And I think that when we ask why, it's a very natural question. The only problem is that there is no answer.
But then when people try to rebuild their lives, how do you tell them to trust again, trust in God?
Well, the first thing I try to explain is that we have to go on living with our questions, and that perhaps why is a less productive question than how. How do I go on? How do I learn to live as a beautiful life as possible with my questions?
And one of the things you warn against is turning toward false comforts.
Yes.
An example being what?
A false comfort is anything that we rely upon to deaden our pain, to escape from our pain. An addiction, gambling, drugs, it could be the wrong relationship, it could be shopping, it could even be work. One man in my congregation came to me devastated because of his frustration in life. He started gambling. And he came to me after he'd gambled away his family's entire life savings. And when I was looking at him, I remembered how he had once told me that he always wanted to be a painter. And I said, I'd like to commission a painting from you. He looks a little puzzled, but he said, okay. And it wasn't maybe a few days later when he called me up late at night, very excited. He said, please come over here right this second. And I came over, and before me was this stunning painting. And I started to shiver because when I asked him to start painting, I thought of it as a therapeutic endeavor, and it never really occurred to me that he might be incredibly talented. And what he taught me is that we can soar to unimaginable heights when we allow ourselves to embrace the true comforts that our souls have been searching for.
One of the things I liked about the portions of the book I read is that some of the advice is so simple. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things you tell people is sometimes just getting some rest can add a whole new perspective to a terrible situation.
Yeah, it can revive a marriage. I know you're a newlywed. Yeah. And it can save a marriage. There was a couple that came to me really terribly overwrought because they worked really long hours at high-pressure jobs, and they said, we're hardly ever seeing each other, and we're bickering all the time when we do see each other, and their sex life had totally disappeared. And they said, what should we do? And I said, why don't you just try to take a day of rest? Which, by the way,
Sabbath.
Yeah, could be for Jews, Christians, Muslims. People have been doing it for thousands of years. Just take a day and don't do work. Don't think about work. I know it's the Today Show, but turn off the TV for that one day. You know what happened? They came back to me the next week, and they walked in arm in arm, and they said they hadn't experienced such peace since their honeymoon.
There are great stories. There are disturbing stories. The book is called To Begin Again, The Journey Toward Comfort, Strength, and Faith in Difficult Times. Rabbi Naomi Levy, good to see you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's good to have you.